Hello and welcome to another Stellarian Games video. Before we begin this episode, I wanted to say thank you to all of the YouTube subscribers. This channel just recently got pushed over the 1,000 subscriber mark, and I just wanted to say thank you to everyone who has subscribed. I like making these videos because it gives me, I guess, a purpose and challenge to make some interesting things, as well as to showcase some of the things that I've been doing for my own games and tabletop experience. But seeing that other people enjoy what I do really makes this all worthwhile. So I just wanted to say thank you. And if you hang on till the end of the video, hopefully you'll get a little bit of a thank you gift in response. So let's jump into today's description, which is we're going to make a locking puzzle. This is a 3D element that I designed in Tinkercad, just a free online 3D software program, and I 3D printed it, and it turned out pretty well. The puzzle locks with several rings of letters and a couple shapes just to add some variety. And if you solve the puzzle, you can pull it apart, and you can store messages inside of the locking puzzle. You can lock it up. You can set the code to whatever you want. So it can be used in games multiple different ways because you can set the code however you need to for a particular game session. So this locking puzzle is a 3D STL file that you will be able to download. So that, I think, is going to be a really exciting thing. And then stick around at the end. I'm hoping to give you a little bit of a surprise, too. So let's go to the table and see how this is done. Okay, for this craft, I used Tinkercad, which is a free online 3D design program. And I built all of the different components. It took me several tries to get the pieces to line up correctly, to function the way that I wanted to. I ended up printing several copies out, and they didn't quite work all the way that I wanted, but eventually I found a system that did work. I'm now cleaning out some of the supports for these inner gear mechanisms, just using clippers to clip out those support pieces, and then using a blade to clean up some of that edge just so that it runs more smoothly on the inside. Using a file to clean some of the other areas so that, again, it runs as smooth as possible without catching in weird places, kind of giving away the lock. Some of them, I also use some very fine grit sandpaper to smooth down the faces just so that it, again, runs pretty smoothly. This is the inner column. I'm just taking out the supports and cleaning up those locking bars. Then I'm using that fine grit sandpaper and cleaning up the print lines as well. Now I'm using some blue masking tape to mask off the bottom edge of these towers. And then I'm going to cover the rest of it in this blue tape as well. I'm masking the inner parts of these pieces because I don't want paint to be on any of the moving pieces. I printed it in this kind of metallic gray, and I figured that would be a good inner color without interfering with any of the motion of the piece. These end caps I did need to glue on just because of the way that it needed to print. So I'm just using some super glue and gluing those end caps on. Then I'm masking the inner part of the letter ring. This will lock into the gear ring and set the code to the proper position. So again, I don't want any paint on the inside of the moving pieces, and that includes these letter rings. I'm not going to put any paint on the gear rings. Those will stay just printed parts. Now I'm using a black spray paint primer to coat the outside of these pieces. I wanted to have a nice working base coat of paint on all of this. So I started with just a flat black primer. Once the black had dried, I'm using rubber gloves on my hands and a piece of rag, and I'm spraying some gold spray paint into the rag and then kind of brushing it onto each of the pieces to give it a burnished bronze look. The gold, if you sprayed it on directly, I think would have a bit too bright of a look. With this, it will pick out some of the highlights and details of these pieces and just give it a kind of a worn, dirty look to the metal rather than being bright and shiny. Then I'm moving on to the end caps, and I'm really focusing on not adding too much of the paint. I'm doing just that inner ring, and then I'm going to start working around the edges of all of the pieces as well. I'm taking my time to really just kind of work that paint across the details so that it picks up the highlights and leaves some of the recesses a little bit darker. I did try to work some of it in just so that it has some gold on it. You don't have weird black outlines or anything like that, but for the most part I'm trying to really work it up and create highlights with this burnishing method. Next I'm going to move to the actual letter rings, and I'm going to switch to a hammered steel spray paint, and I'm spraying it into another clean rag and burnishing it onto the letter rings. The letter rings will be this more silver steel look, and the rest will have kind of that burnished bronze look. For the letter rings, I'm trying to follow kind of a brushed steel look, so I'm brushing it in a single direction. I'm just removing all of this masking tape once the spray paint is dried and getting it ready to do the assembly. So you set the code by finding the letter that you want, lining it up with the little gap in the ring. Then that gap goes down the slide of the shaft. I put a washer piece in between that locks the rings from sliding against each other and kind of distorting the code as you spin them. So you set your code, put on the gear ring, put on a washer, set another code, and continue stacking your piece until you're finished. And the last step of this is to paint some red onto the solving position so that it highlights and is clear that you can solve it in the correct position. All right, here's the finished product. I hope you really like this project as much as I do. If you do, you can go out and download the STL and print one for yourself. It takes a little bit of time to print all of the different pieces and get it right, but when it's done, it's a really cool prop for the tabletop. So stick around, I've got a little announcement to make. All right, now that you've had a chance to see how the lock puzzle was put together and painted up, and seen some of the final results, I hope you like the video as much as I did, and the final result as well. I like this so much that I made a second copy, and I'm willing to give this second copy away. And if you're interested in a chance to win this second copy of the locking puzzle, all you have to do is leave a comment down below in this YouTube video. By October 31st, I will condense all of the commenters' names and randomly pick one of the commenters and post an update over on the Stellarian Games Facebook page. So if you go and keep track of the Stellarian Games Facebook page, I will post the update on November 1st and let the winner know who actually won this locking puzzle. and we'll contact through Facebook and figure out a way of getting this sent off to you. The full contest rules will also be posted over in the Facebook page, so if you're interested, go take a look. So I'm glad you had a chance to watch through this video, and if you're interested in this second copy, please leave a comment below, and we'll see you again next time. Thank you.